Huawei doesn't just make really good-looking smartphones and wearables, it actually makes surprisingly good laptops and tablets as well. And just last year, the company made waves with its Matebook X Pro. Possibly because that laptop actually hid a webcam into its keyboard so it would pop up when you needed it, but also because it was just such a great all-around laptop. At CES 2019, the company is unveiling a new Matebook called the Matebook 13. So with the Matebook 13, Huawei is trying to target a different segment or a different type of consumer, someone that's looking for more or less the same power and portability, but at a slightly budget-friendlier price. I've been using a Matebook X, the 13-inch version, as my main driver for what feels like a year now, and this basically feels like a light version of that. Some of the premium touches aren't here. For example, the design isn't as sleek, you don't have the tapering edges, it doesn't feel as thin and sharp, but this is still a nice build for the price, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. It's got the same fingerprint sensor on the keyboard deck, which serves as a 2-in-1 power button and fingerprint sensor. This guy has an independent security chip to store your biometric information on. There's also an edge-to-edge keyboard here, which is full-size, very comfortable to type on. It's got 1.2 millimeters of travel, which is a lot more than, say, Apple's MacBook Air offers. There's also a bigger trackpad here than on my Matebook X, which makes me feel like I'm not running out of space as I'm navigating websites or zooming in on pictures. The screen is also mostly the same. It's got 4.4 millimeter bezels as well as a 3:2 ratio that will let you see more of a website as you're scrolling or more of your document. There's also a touchscreen this time around, by the way. One of the shortfalls here is that the Matebook 13 only goes up to about 300 nits in brightness, whereas the Matebook X actually went up to 350 nits. So you'll notice that when you're using the laptop, say, in really bright sunlight, for example. So another difference that at least I'm noticing is that the Matebook X had the speakers on top on the keyboard deck, whereas the Matebook 13 has its dual speakers at the bottom. Even though the speakers are on the bottom of the laptop, when we played a video here in the hands-on room, I was still able to hear it pretty clearly. So I don't think that's going to be a problem unless you listen to audio when you're using the laptop on your lap. Inside the Matebook 13 actually packs some pretty impressive guts as well. The gray version comes with an 8th generation Core i7 Intel chipset with 8 gigs of RAM and 512 gig SSD, and it's higher power than competitors, say, maybe a MacBook Air. Huawei was able to pack more powerful guts in there because it says it has a unique shark fin 2.0 cooling system that helps dissipate air. They've put a dual fan system in between the CPU and GPU to keep heat away from each other and prevent overheating better. Also, about 50% of the chassis is taken up by the 42 watt-hour battery here that Huawei says is supposed to provide up to 10 hours of 1080p video playback, but that is on the i5 version of the laptop. Like the Matebook X, this only has 2 USB-C ports, which is already more generous than the original MacBook. But Huawei knows you need ports, so it's included a dongle or dock that you can plug in, and it'll offer options for USB-C, USB-A, VGA, and HDMI without you having to spend some extra money. All of this comes in 2 configuration options. There's the i5 one that I mentioned with an integrated UHD 620 graphics chip. That will start at $999 with 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of SSD. And the higher end version, which is the i7 with an NVIDIA MX150, will start at $1299. We don't know exactly when they will start retailing. We know it's later in January, so get your money ready if you're looking for a good PC version of a MacBook clone. This might be one, but it is certainly friendlier on your budget. So hey, a good one to consider when you're buying a laptop this year. Stay tuned for more out of CES 2019 at Engadget.com.